Seat. We're all reset. Yes, we're good. Let's have one nice loud salawat for Zala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad, please. Thank you very much. So, you can see these topics are quite detailed and they require like full days to really sort of conduct. We went through a little bit of the idea of riya and ostentation, and in this second session we're going to talk a little bit about envy and hasad. And I've skipped over the idea of narcissism. I don't have time. We're going to go on all the way until 6:45, give you guys another break, and then from 7 to 8 will be the fun and exciting Q&A. I can't wait. Okay? Any questions from the discussion on riya? Any confusions, any questions? No, we're good, alhamdulillah. I lost somebody and half the crowd didn't come back after the break. Was it that bad, the first session? They took their ice cream and they went home? Yes?
So I had a question. Sometimes when you're trying to promote the good or like, let's say, spread the knowledge,
Yeah.
in the process it could be you're playing a battle in the sense of like you're saying something, but in your mind you were saying it could be such that, or like it could show that, he's saying it because he practices it, or he's saying it because he knows it.
Okay.
So it could come off as like
Showing off?
showing off.
Ah, okay.
So like how do you balance that situation? Because like sometimes then you want to like not say it like because of that situation.
Okay. So I think that this whole process of Amr bin Ma'ruf, calling people towards good, promoting this idea of spirituality, I think that, remember, that's that wajib act that is conditional. It's like Hajj, it's like fasting. If you are able to do it, then you do it. So you have to pick and choose your battles. If you have someone that you're close to, a friend of yours, a sibling, a spouse, that you know will listen to sometimes your advice, then you deliver that message. Now hopefully you should be somebody who's acting on the things that you're promoting. There's nothing worse than somebody, coming to you with a beautiful, clean-shaven face and saying, "Brother, really, you should grow a beard," right? Or someone who is, whose hypocrisy is very apparent, and they're trying to teach you to not do the things that they're doing themselves. So I think sometimes we're a little bit scared as to how it comes across. I think that if your actions allow yourself to speak louder than your words, I think that goes a long, long way, right? Especially with someone that you have impact on, someone close to you. Islam is never asking any of you to go out there, top of a mountain, at the doorstep of the center, and say, oh people, hear me. No, we pick and choose our battles. That person that I think now might listen to me, I should say something in their ear about what they're doing. Now, directly, indirectly, with kindness, with laughter, blah, 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 this and that. There are some people who say everything over text. They add a LOL and everything is great afterwards. Right? Sab bol diya and LOL afterwards. It's a masterpiece. Right? Has ke pura jumla bol diya, right? Okay. But they said the actual word, right? So there are people who have mastered that. Khair. So I think it's important that we understand who we're talking to, and hopefully they know your character so they don't think negative of you, inshallah. Okay? Let's move on to envy. Okay? Another very debilitating disease that we have. And, yes? We are skipping number 3. Yeah, sorry. And 5 and 6. I only have 2 sessions with you guys. And I chose this completely random, that I wanted to talk about envy for sure. If I had time, narcissism, but I don't have time, unfortunately. Okay? Now, both of these diseases, riya and envy and hasad, they have a direct, and this is a little bit harsher, I'm sorry, we are directly battling God himself. Okay? That's why sometimes they're so detrimental. In the first disease, in riya, we're actually telling God that your pleasure for me isn't enough. I need everyone else's pleasure, right? It's okay that you're pleased with me, yeah, but really I want these 3, 4, 8 people to be wowed by me, okay? In envy, we're saying, God, I'm rendering you powerless to give to that person and give to me as well. Okay? My hasad and my jealousy is that I don't want them to have it. I want me to have it instead. Why them? Why not me? And that's when we tell God that, look, God, you only have the power to give either one of us, and you made a mistake. Right? I've been dying for a child for 5, 6, 7, 8 years. I'm going to be an amazing parent. These guys don't know anything about kids, and they get pregnant just blinking their eyes, for example. Right? Why them? Why not us? Okay? That's a direct challenge for God's power. Right? It becomes very dangerous. That's why this conversation has two faces to it. Number one, let's understand a little bit in the absolute nature of Allah's power, how it relates to envy, and then, of course, talk about causes and solutions of envy. Okay? Now, before I get there, let's make a distinction right now between something called envy and something called jealousy. The depth of Islamic ethical sciences is that envy and jealousy are not interchangeable words. In the West it is, but not in Islam. Hasad is one thing, ghibta is something else. Ghibta is actual jealousy that's productive in nature. I want to be like her. I want to be spiritual like him. I want to read Quran like him. I love the way that she carries herself. I love her spiritual nature. I want to be soft-spoken like him. I want to be a speaker like this speaker. I want to be an alim like him. I'm jealous of that. Not to the point where I want that to be taken from them, but I want what they want. That's great. It's motivation. That's positive jealousy, for lack of a better translation. That's called ghibta. Ghibta is great. Right? That's why you guys should be surrounding yourself with people who bring about that change inside of you. Okay? That's why your friends are so important. And you guys, if you guys have heard any of my lectures, all I talk about is that there are 3 major decisions that will shape your life in your world. If you can nail these 3, you've done a lot. Number 1 is God. Okay? Do I believe in God or not? How do I believe in God? Is he my master, or God forbid, is he my slave? That I only call upon him when I need something. Right? You call a nokar, you come in, can you vacuum, can you cook me my dal, now you can go away. God, I need this dua to be met, I need this, I need that, I need this. Okay, it's all done, thank you, go back, I'll call you when I'm ready. Number 1. Number 2 is who you marry. Who you marry is crucial. That's why Islam has given this criteria, pages upon pages of ahadith on who to marry, who not to marry, criteria, blah, 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 this and that. Whole process. Right now, I'm designing a pre-marriage course just based on the amount of demand I'm getting by a lot of communities. I talk about post-marriage a lot, but I don't talk about pre-marriage. Number 3 are your friends, who your friends are, who your circle of influence is. That defines you. Show me your friends, I will show you your future. Okay? That's why a lot of my parents, you're obsessed with the friends of your children, and you should be. Call them inside, let me meet them. Aur beta kya haal hai? Yeah. And you're like, Mom, please don't embarrass me. Do that, please embarrass your kids. Embarrass your kids when it comes to your friends. I'm telling you, I've seen achhe khase bachche, beautiful kids raised in a great environment, kidnapped, spiritually kidnapped by their friends around them. It's not fair. Anyways, 3 are huge. God, spouse, friends. Okay? So we want to be able now to be surrounded by those people who bring about this ghibta inside of me. Oh my God, I can be like this. Like, I have a friend like this. That's great. But hasad and envy is evil. That's evil. That's where I want this person to suffer. They don't deserve it. I deserve it. Yes, Abbas. In Arabic, ghain ba ta ha. Ghibta. Okay? So first understand a little bit quickly the power of Allah. A little bit of a deeper discussion in terms of theology, but mashallah, you guys can handle this. The higher the level of the agent, the greater its power. Number 1. Okay? So think about the fact inside of your home as parents, your child has certain power or a certain level of authority, then you have that level of authority. If you live with your parents, let's say, for example, they have a higher level of authority. Okay? So if, for example, you're with your mom, like for example, in my younger brother's house, Abbas, my mom lives with Abbas, no, well, Abbas lives with my mom, and then Abbas, his wife, and his 3 beautiful kids, and then his 3 beautiful kids. The highest powerful agent in that house is mom. She's the mafia queen in that house. Whatever mom says, bilkul on me. Jia, that's it. After that is Abbas, my younger brother, and his wife, and then their kids. The eldest is Zainab, who is 10 years old. She has a little bit of authority over her younger siblings. The higher the agent, the higher the power. Make sense so far? Okay. Power pertains to the possible, not the impossible in principle. Right? It's absurd when you talk about the fact that can you do something that's impossible? Right? Can your God, the atheist, ask, can your God make a boulder even too heavy for him? Such an absurd question. Can your God make 2 + 2 = 5? Okay? And that's why it's important. I'm going very fast here. Okay. So examples that sometimes, that's what happens when you're an atheist and you're searching for some sort of debate against people who are godly. You search for the illogical, for the absurd, for the ridiculous. It really doesn't have any sort of a meaning whatsoever, okay? So when it comes to the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's not always about can. We have to look at his power along with his wisdom. Not can he do it, but rather, should he do it? Because we can't say that God can't do something, but we can ask, should God do this? Okay? And as a point of reference while I'm here, that's one thing that if you want to teach your children a great skill to have, it's the beauty of wisdom. The power of can versus the wisdom of should. This society will tell your kids, if you can do it, do it. Islam says it's not about if or not you can do it, but rather should you do it. It's a big difference, man. It's a big difference. I can easily jump off the roof. Should I? No. I can go to the casino. Should I? No. I can do this. Should I? No. If we can figure out that can and should, then we can move mountains. Allah's can cannot be seen as a standalone entity. His can and should have to be combined together. Okay? Having the power to carry out an act does not mean that it must be carried out. A lot of things, parents, you guys can do for your kids that you refuse to do, good or bad. Okay? And sometimes you remind your kids, I could have done this, but I didn't. God carries out those actions that are in line with his perfection and his wisdom. It lacks wisdom for a God to make 2 + 2 = 5. It lacks wisdom for God to create a boulder that even he can't carry. Okay? So we can't just sit there and carry out the idea that can he. That's not a fair question. Okay? Power brings freedom to act. As God has the greatest power, he is also the most free. Okay? So mom has the most freedom in that house to act because she's the highest. The freedom now lessens all the way down to his small guy, Hussein, who is about 10 months old. Cutie, 10 months old, right? He has bachara no freedom whatsoever. Doesn't want to sleep, we just sit there and rock him till he sleeps. My mom has all the freedom. This and that. Whatever you want, mom. You're mafia queen, as I say. The best part is that I have 4 siblings, okay? There's 3 of us, 3 brothers, and I have 1 sister. Us brothers are all 6'4". My sister is 5'11". My mother is 5'4", Bachari. Okay? But she runs the house, Abbas. I'm like, gee on me, for sure. Right? She's like, can't hit you because then I'll hurt myself. There's no point in hitting you. But she sees me with one little, her eyebrows go down, that's it. No agent can coerce him or take away anything from his freedom, his yani Allah's freedom, as the very existence and power of that agent is from God. And God can never be overcome by a force that he himself gave to that agent. So God is not a force that can be coerced into anything, forced into anything, nor can we question his wisdom. That's the power of Allah. When we say he's qadir, that qudrat is mutlaq, it's absolute. Okay? That's just sort of Tawheed 101. I'm really breezing through it because I'm assuming that this whole talk is on the notion and on the premise that we believe in all these things about when it comes to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But this is very important when it comes time for us looking at somebody and subconsciously asking myself, why, God, would you give to that person and not to me? Or we render him powerless to give to both of us. That's dangerous. Okay? Now, MashaAllah. Allahumma salli ala. Stop. Give me a second. I'm going to ruin my whole show here. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay. So what is envy now? Envy is challenging God. Okay? Let's look at this hadith. A little bit wordy. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addresses Nabi Musa. And Nabi Musa is that prophet that I am obsessed with, to be quite frank with you. It's an incredible story. The things that, he went through, he is mentioned the most in the Quran. As you know, many things about his story have been done, from podcasts to movies to lecture series to you name it. It's an incredible story of how he dealt with a tribe that was so ungrateful. But the beauty about Nabi Musa was his talks with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They're so moving and so inspiring. He's referred to as Kalimullah, as you guys know, the one who spoke to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Not just once, he would actually look for excuses to have quote-unquote conversations with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In one of them now, Allah addresses him through wahi and through various means. Look at the words he's using, okay? Carefully understand these words. O son of Imran, never be envious of people concerning the blessings I have given them. Allah's now talking. Okay? And then he explains why. I've given to them what? Min fadli, based on my grace. Do not glower at them, meaning don't look down upon them, don't question their niyat, this and that. They're horrible people, they're given everything, blah, blah, blah. Do not succumb to your envious self. Indeed, the envious man is indigent at the bestowal of my favor and contests my apportioning. Meaning what? Challenges me in saying, are you sure you've given the right person those blessings? Wasn't that gift meant for somebody else? Did you make a mistake here, God? Whoso is such, they neither belong to me, nor do I belong to them. Okay? There's a whole discussion on, we've been praying for this, Maulana, 6 months, a year, 5 years, 6 years, it's not happening. Whole talk about why sometimes our du'as are not answered. Okay? But when we get to a point where it becomes dangerous, where now I am waiting to live a life that this couple lives, for example, right? White picket fence and 3 beautiful kids and traveling the world and blah, 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 and they plaster it on social media, and you're sitting there, and that's why I would really be cautious of this idea. And everywhere you go and everything you do as a family and blah, 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 you and your husband, you and your wife, all over social media, this heart and that hashtag and this, and this message about how great my husband, how great my wife is. Just realize there are people out there reading your posts that don't have all of that. I get the fact that you can sit there and say, well, that's not my responsibility. I want to share with the world what I have. That may not be the best approach. Okay, there are people who can never go to Bali or never go to, let's say, for example, Hajj or Arba'in walk and this and that. 5th straight year, Arba'in walk, hashtag goals, right? And so it's like, okay, and I've been asking Allah for 10 years, just take me for ziyarat, right? So sometimes we have to be a little bit careful. Those of you who are post-happy, be a little bit careful that the last thing you want when you're in a miserable marriage is to see these two, like staring off in the beach and this and that, and right? Yeah. So then we come to this. I'm going to use this. Go back to my old school. Okay. Let's define, let's clarify. Envy, which is hasad, is not you, but me. So take away from you and give it to me. Okay? Jealousy, ghibta, is you and me. Okay? The highest level is what's called ithar, which is what? Which is not me, but rather you. That's the highest level of akhlaq, really. Okay? This idea of the sacrificial nature, which is not promoted nowadays. What's promoted is you do you. You look after yourself, right? You're number one. Make sure, you, as long as you're okay, you're walking by somebody who's drowning, you thank Allah that you know how to swim, you keep walking away, right? That's a little bit of what's being subconsciously shoved down the throats of our kids. Okay? Whereas Islam talks about the idea of a shaheed. Not so much a shaheed on a battlefield, but sometimes when you sacrifice what you desire for somebody else, what you love for somebody else, you're a living shaheed for that moment. And you know the maqam of the shuhada, right? Now, of course, battlefields are one thing, with the imams are one thing, but sometimes we also can taste a little bit of that, when we give up a little bit of what we love for somebody else. I don't know how sacrificial we have become as a community. I'll give you very simple, very silly examples, I'm sorry. A brother needs a ride home. A ride home. I'm stuck, this and that, can you drop me off? You live 10 minutes from this brother's house. I'll be 10 minutes out of your way. So you sit there and you make a deal with him. I'll drop you at this place, and from there you're on your own. Uber it, walk, grab a bus, whatever the case may be. I've heard the bus comes every 10 minutes. It's a matter of 4 or 5 left turns you'll make. 20 minutes out of your way, just to make sure someone gets home safely. But sometimes we're not willing to do that. Why should, I'm already late, 20 minutes down, this and that. He should have bought his own car, right? What? I'm not his personal Uber, am I? I don't know. Ask yourself how much of it. Again, I'm not telling you at the sake of anybody else. When the imams they gave half of what they had to others and kept other half for themselves. Right? The rule is that you have $2 in your pocket, someone needs some money, you give $1 to them, keep $1 for yourself. I'm not saying for you to go into poverty so someone has their annual Arba'in walk. Or that you rescue somebody from their anxiety to the point where now you have drowned yourself in your own anxiety. No, there's a fine balance. But there are people who can give. Give to the point where, you know what, it's okay, you can have this one, go ahead. No problem. I don't know how sacrificial we are as a people. If we are, fantastic. I just know that back in my parents' generation, man, they had nothing to give and they gave a lot more than we gave nowadays. Their time and their efforts and blah, 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 and this and that. So we have to move not only away from hasad, this is really dangerous, but move towards the idea of living an ithar life, a sacrificial life. Okay? It's okay if we're a little bit uncomfortable for the sake of someone else's comfort. It goes a long way, if not for anything else, because it's the right thing to do. That's it. It's just the right thing to do. You may not get any money out of it. You might even have to put extra gas in your car. That's okay. But like I said in the last session, God sees that. And He'll elevate that. Okay? Question about that? Are you sure? Usually I get a lot of questions here. Yeah, but what about this? Yeah, but what about that? I'm not saying for you to sit there and have no heat in the house and your fridge is empty, but someone else now has their AC on and their fridge is stacked. That's not what I'm saying, obviously. Islam does not say to go into poverty to make sure someone else is rich. But where you're able to sacrifice, sacrifice. Yeah? You guys sleepy? You guys okay? Were those Oreos, they're doing a number on you guys? Did you have chai? Can you wake up a little bit for me, please? Can you just wake up a little bit, please? Nice salawat, please, on Muhammad wa alihi, please. I had a majlis before this. I have one after this. And you're tired right now, sitting there listening to me? Sharam na haya, ya Allah. Huh. Reflecting right now, yeah. That's why that's cute, Basma. That's cute. Yeah. We're all reflecting, right? Having a reflective moment. Yeah, with their head down, their eyes closed. Yeah. Yes, my brother. Yeah. Oh, okay. So hasad is, for example, I want to take away from you, and I want to give it to me. So not you, but yes to me, which is bad. Okay. Jealousy, ghibta, is actually very positive. I don't want to take it from you. You can have your beautiful qira'at, you can have your spirituality. I just want a little bit of that. So you hang on to it, but I want that as well. That's beautiful. Right? That's actually somebody who is encouraging you. Someone who is positive peer pressure. You and me. Ithad is something higher than even that, is where now I'm going to sit there and give up my spot to make sure you have your spot. Okay? I was always taught, for example, small things like an elder walks into the hall, you get off the wall, give him the wall. And elder walks in the living room, you get up and you give your father, your grandfather, your guest the best seat in the house, right? You take the food last. You make sure nowadays, mashallah, kids are walking in with their pound of biryani on their plate first in line. The alim and the seniors and all that, right? So those things are lost principles. Okay, so this is what I'm after here. Okay, we're going to try to be a little bit sacrificial in nature. Right? We're going to definitely avoid this. This is a great station to be at. If you have somebody in your life, either your spouse or your friends or your siblings or whoever, that has that impact on you, thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Imam Ali says 2 people in your life, if you have 2 friends like that, who push you towards good, you are amongst those who are blessed. Just 2, that's it. We don't need 300 followers and 800 subscribers. Forget all that. Numbers are not important. You have 2 or 3 people in your life that really work on making you the best person possible. You are very, very blessed. Okay? That's good? Yes. Yes. Yeah, so it depends on from the person posting it to the person reading the post. So I'm asking you that I know that you want to share with the world on your vacation. You took some beautiful pictures of your family. You guys look like you're canoeing in the lake, right? This and that, right? Maybe at that moment you think about, for a second, think outside your bubble and think, okay, there might be somebody who's been dying for that maybe I'm just pouring salt in their wounds. It's a tough one, I understand. So on the one who's posting, you're going to be sacrificial, but the one who is reading the post is not going to sit there and cringe and say, oh my God, this person got this guy to marry? That's your man? You got this man? I don't understand. 6'8" and blue eyes and a Tesla and everything. You? Right? We're not doing that, right? So we're going to go, that's fine. Good for you. Inshallah, one day I'll have the canoe in this lake and that lake and blah, 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 right? So it depends on which angle you're looking at. Yeah? Good question. Anybody else? Yes. My teacher in the audience, yes. Oh, you tell me what happens to you. You know what happens to you? You detach from what you have. And if we can learn to detach from the right things and reattach to the right things, woo, we've done something good. I've attached myself to the wrong thing. I've detached myself from the wrong thing. So what God says is, look, I'm going to ask you to detach from this dunya, attach yourself to me. And your reward is that I'm going to make that thing you detach from chase after you now. Oh, God's amazing. People says, give up the dunya and come after me. Okay, God, I'm after you now. Now that dunya that you used to chase will chase you now. Happens all the time. The problem is you don't want the dunya. Joey, say, right? You don't want it anymore. I have God now. Don't need it. As my mama said, Dafa, go, Dafa. Yeah. Okay. Is this good? Clear? Clear as mud? Are you still reflecting amongst me? Yeah? Do you always snore when you reflect, or is that just... Why are we envious as people? Number one, we don't like the person. Flat out enmity. Nafrat hodi shakal se. I don't like that person at all. Enmity. Why them? Right? Number one, why them? Why do I have this enmity? What is it about her or him that causes me to become someone I'm not? Again, reflective, right? Is there something in them that I wish I had? Like there's one guy in my life, member of my family. It's live stream, right? By the way, mashallah. One guy in my life, right? He never puts himself in a position where he's uncomfortable. Okay? He has mastered, and the word is mastered his limits and his boundaries. And he doesn't care who it is. If I'm reaching my boundaries, I'm out. Okay? Never puts himself in a position where he is uncomfortable, pit in your stomach, that trigger person, blah, 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 and he gets away with it. So I'm forcing myself to be at a certain event, and he won't even show up. And nobody asks, oh, where's so-and-so, where's so-and-so? And I tell myself, I had this whole talk with myself, oh, if I didn't show up, oh, everybody says, oh, tum kante, you weren't there, blah, blah, blah. This guy never shows up anywhere, and no one says a word to him. I'm mad at him because I wish I was like that, right? I wish for a second, I wish I could sit there and advocate for myself sometimes. And say, Mom, Dad, I don't want to go today. So-and-so is going to be there. I don't want to hear these comments about, this and that, and this Maulvi, and that Molana, and this weight, and blah, 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 and cash business. I'm tired of hearing that stuff after a while. Don't want to hear it. But I wish I could do that. It's not anyone else's fault. It's my fault, right? I have to be a self-advocate. That enmity comes from somewhere. Number two is a strong sense of one's supremacy. I actually believe I deserve more than I have. I actually believe I deserve more than I have. It may happen that the envious man, the hasid, anticipates the pride of the envied, the mahsud. On account of a merit and advantage that he enjoys, not having the patience to put up with the pride, he earnestly desires the loss of those merits and advantages. If you know that somebody who you don't like just got a promotion, okay, or just bought a new car, or had something new in their life, and you know the next time they're going to see you, they're going to mention it and rub it in your face. Okay, so before that even happens, I already have this hasad towards them, envy towards them. So I won't give them their moment. I won't let them say a few words. Look, there are some people, I tell you, in this room, God knows I've done this. We live sometimes in our own mind. There are people that create a fictitious world, and they live in that fictitious world. Create things that are not there. Did you see the way she said salam to me? No, I didn't. No, are you sure? She said salam alaikum to you, and she smiled. She said salam to me and walked right past me. I'm like, oh, yeah, I knew she hit it from day number one. No? Do you see the way he shook your hand? He squeezed your hand. He just placed his hand in my hand. I'm like, him? Yeah, you didn't see it. I know. You live in this fantasy Harry Potter world, and you live in that world, and you make decisions. Now you won't invite them, and now they won't invite you, all based on nothing is real. Nothing is real. I'm sorry. There are some people who thrive on chaos. I'm sorry. If their BP is normal, they don't like it. They want their BP to be high. So they'll create things that will get their heart racing. Right? It's like, what are you talking about? I never saw any of that. I was so great. No. Yeah, you never see what I see. Great conversation, great dinner, great family outing, blah, 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 and 5, 6, 7 complaints. And every complaint, BP is rising, BP, and they're getting happier as the BP goes up. I don't understand. Thrive on chaos, right? So there are some people that believe I deserve more. So I don't want to hear about your victories. I'm not going to give you that moment of yours. Number 3, flat out pride. Flat out pride. Looking down on people. And number 2 and 3 are very much connected. We believe this person is lower than me for whatever reason. Sometimes gender, sometimes caste, sometimes age, sometimes knowledge, sometimes, sometimes the ones who are the most religious, I'm sorry, are the ones who are the most judgmental in our communities. I'm really sorry to say that. The biggest beards, the tightest hijabs, they look down on those who might have a strand showing or may not be able to grow a beard. If that deen was really that deen, it would make you more open-minded and not closed-minded. Right? 4,000 years Shaitan worshipped Allah, only to what? To show his pride at the worst moment alive. When God says, do this, he goes, I can't do it, I'm sorry. I'm asking you to do it. I still can't do it. Right? So you ask, where did all of that go? Right? Where did all that worship go? So kibr, pride, straight up. This, the envious person wishes to treat the envied poorly. Look down on them. Okay? There's a history there. They don't like them from day number 1. And this person is just succeeding at life, knocking everything out of the park. Everything is great, blah, blah, blah. And the more success they get, the more they get more and more envious. 625. And then confusion. Right? Confusion. I don't understand why this person gets everything and I don't get it. They're puzzled. They're puzzled. So people ask me, why do some people get blessed and others don't? That's a very broad question. It's a case by case, right? So it's very, very difficult. This is one of those diseases, guys, that can really destroy the hearts. Okay? Now, so far so good? You guys understand the causes? Because the next slide is the effects. Okay? So enmity, supremacy, pride, and confusion. But the biggest thing is that you're challenging God. You're telling God that, God, you don't have enough to give to me and give to them. So you've made it a wrong choice to give them those kids when really those kids should be given to me. I'm the better parent. Okay? Now, effects. Okay. Let's understand this statement, and let me talk about this statement. Both of them are very, very crucial. Allah in a Hadith Qudsi. Hadith Qudsi, as you know, are those words of Allah that are not verses of the Quran. Okay? So, قال Allah, so and so. Allah has said. Whole book called Hadith Qudsi online. These are the words of Allah. It's one thing where you say Imam Sadiq says, the Prophet says, one thing where God himself says. Okay? He says, look, the earth, the heavens, they can't contain me. Okay? They can't contain me. لا تسعني أرضي ولا سماعي. Not the ard, not the sama can contain me. What can contain me is قلب عبد المؤمن. The heart of the believer can contain me. Now let me explain what that means. When you contain something, you can either host it, like the 6th Imam says, Al-qalbu haram Allah, fala tuskin haram Allah, ghayr Allah. The heart is the haram of Allah, the sanctuary of God. Imam Hussein is in Karbala, Imam Ali in Najaf. God is where? In the heart of you and I. فَلَا تُسْكِنْ حَرَمَ اللَّهِ غَيْرَ اللَّهِ. Do not allow anything to reside in that sanctuary but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's one meaning. The other meaning is that we have the power to limit God as well. To limit God as well. And that's what I'll segue to this very crucial, very dangerous statement. Okay? When Allah says that your hearts can contain me, it means that the way that you see me is totally up to you. If you see me as a limited creator, I become a limited creator. So now instead of me working towards a certain goal, I'm boo-hooing and crying over the fact that they've already achieved that goal. That's fine. Let them achieve that goal, but you still work towards your goal. No, it's either them or it's me. So says who? Says who? You've convinced yourself, I've convinced myself through the containment of God that look, he already gave it to one, he can't give to another. And that's when he says this, Ana indi dhanni bih. Abdi bi. That I am to my servants as they see me. Oh, this is so crucial. Look, there are some people who are glass half full and glass half empty. There are some people who sit there and smell the roses and feel the petals, others who complain about the thorns. Okay? There are some people who wash dishes, some people let them soak all night. There are some people who, even in the best of moments, find something wrong with that moment. Then there are those like Nabi Isa. They see a corpse of a dog, and his disciples are complaining about the smell, and all he sees is look how straight the teeth of the dog were. Okay? There are people who are happy-go-lucky. There's 1,000 issues with them, but they're skipping through the center. Then there are people who have stubbed their toes, and qiyamat aa jati hai. Right? God says, how you see me is how I am to you. If you've been convinced since day number one that you and I have a problem, me and God meaning, that God hates me, that God has a target on my back, that God denies me everything, that I've been asking for this dua for all my life, 1, 2, 8, 9, 12 got them, I never got it, that means that God must hate me. How many times am I asked, why does God hate me, Maulana? Why does he have it out for me? Me and God don't really mix, we don't really jive, Maulana. We haven't really had a good connection since my high school years. And so because you've convinced yourself that's how God is, every experience with God reflects that vision. Okay? So if there's a hardship put in your life, and God is like, look, through that hardship, hopefully they'll come back to me. I'm sitting there in that hardship saying, see, I told you, God strikes again. That's what he does best. Here we go again. Right? Round 12, let's do this. Then there are those people who are quite the opposite. They've seen the greatness in everything God has given them. Every hardship, every struggle, every blessing, every greatness, everything. All of you are always thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even the most difficult of moments, nothing but shukr and hamd on your lips. He is exactly how you see him. He'll try to change. He'll try to throw you a different angle, but he can't change your vision. Right? So when I am convinced that God doesn't want to see me happy, all I see is this master plan of God. He's going to surround me with people that look happy just to rub it in my face that you're not happy. And I convince myself of that. I am to my servants as they see me. If you see him as a loving, forgiving, compassionate God, every experience, bitter or sweet, will reflect that love and compassion. You see him as a punishing, revengeful, angry God, every blessing even. Even to the point where I remind people of the blessing, yeah, okay, fine, once in a while, great. Thanks a lot, God. After 10 years, you gave me a blessing. You want me to celebrate? Imagine, a blessing, a huge blessing. The people would die to have what you have, what I have. Even then, I'm like, okay, great, thanks. 10 years too late. When I'm too old to enjoy it, now you're giving it to me? I am to my servants as they see me. Very, very important for us to change our lens towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The prophets, the imams, if you can sum up in one word, Alhamdulillah ala kulli halin. In every state, I am thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If he blesses me with privilege, like we all live a privileged life right now, right? Like the lights flash for 2 seconds. What's going to happen? Oh my God, run to the AV room, reset the projector, blah, blah, blah. That happens 20 times a day in India, Pakistan. Palestine has power for maybe 6-7 hours a day. We live a privileged life, right? Very, very privileged life we live, right? If we don't begin to realize that these are blessings, and even through the hardships now, Allah is just carving a path back to us, we'll begin to realize, wrongfully, that he just has it out for me. And of course, If he doesn't want to sit there and give me, I'm not going to give him what he wants. I'm not going to pray to you. I'm not going to fast for you. I'm not going to go for Hajj for you. Why should I? And it might be subconscious, guys. That's where this is a very important talk that you guys have with yourself. I'll have with myself. How do I see God? How do I think he sees me? Okay? Questions so far? We're about 10 minutes left. Yes?
Maybe this is a difficult question, but how do we see God in a balanced way? Because sometimes we on the one scale, like, oh, we see him very merciful. We see his wrath. Sometimes we see him very wrathful. So we see his mercy.
Yeah.
So, like, how do we, like, balance that scale?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, there's a whole discussion on the Jamal of Allah and the Jalal of Allah. Okay? The Jamal is the beauty of God. The Jalal is the power of God. Okay? Like we've heard sometimes of the Jalal of Abbas on the day of Ashura. This fierce power of Abbas on the day of Ashura. Then we heard of the beauty and the beauty of, let's say, for example, Imam Ali with the orphans. Okay? Eventually, when we get higher and higher, and these kind of discussions and your own worship and your own sort of reflection gets to the point, and I want you guys to understand this, that what may seem like a Jalali experience on the outside is really a Jamali reality on the inside. I'll give you examples. The day of Ashura, and all of its battles and everything you've heard from the Masaib to everything, gruesome details are shared every single year in Masaib, of arrows and spears and little kids and trampled bodies and beheadings. It's gruesome. It's very difficult to hear. That day of Ashura can be summed up like that if you look at it through that lens. A very Jalali day. Yes? But yet Bibi Zainab, ma ra'aytu illa jamila. I saw nothing but beauty on that day. To be at that level where all she saw beyond the spears and the arrows and the trampled body was a man who sacrificed everything for his Lord. So what, with my, low capacity eyes, I'm looking at a very powerful Jalali experience. All she sees is beauty. There are moments where my elders in the audience now have gone through a very difficult situation, but they've seen beauty inside of it. Some of you young guys get there quicker than I do sometimes. That I know it's hard, but I know that in the depth of it, it's all beauty. Eventually, even the most bitter moments are the sweetest eventually. You know that I have to go through this bitter moment to get to that sweetness. But again, that requires a whole 2 or 3 days to understand. Right? Again, as a personal story of mine, my father, marhum, was, he was a daunting figure. Right? 6'4", and he had these eyes, and he was a presence. He'd enter a room, and we'd know that Baba's home. So there'd be moments where I remember in my childhood that I'd be sitting there with my brothers, and we would throw the ball around in the living room, play catch the football, and blah, blah, and my dad didn't like it, right? If it hit the lamp would break. So we're sitting there, we're playing the ball, and we can hear my father walking upstairs. He's coming down the stairs. The ball goes away, we sit up, get up, Dad's coming, sit properly. We're sitting up properly, this and that. Dad's coming down, right? It's Dad. And you would think, oh my God, is he a tyrant, Mulana? No, not a tyrant. Never laid a hand on us. Never laid a hand on us. Didn't have to. You look at us and that's it. See us, we'd be done. That's it. Okay? But this idea is that you might think, oh my God, does he have that much power, that much jalal inside the house? And you're right. It's out of fear of him, but that fear wasn't this idea that he might beat us. It's that we didn't want to disappoint my father. Right? So what is an outwardly jalali experience is really a jamali that I want his love and respect. Okay? So when you start to sort of reflect on the idea that yes, right now, and some of you right now are going through your fair share of problems, we stop and realize, oh my goodness, what is that God wants from me? Does he really want you to suffer? Do you believe in a God that wants you to suffer? Then excellent, this person is suffering. Ha 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 ha. We believe in an evil tyrant God? No, we don't. Right? He's not Dr. Evil, right? Up there in the heavens. Right? He actually wants you, he knows you go through this a little bit, you get to a point where now you can see my beauty, but you have to get through this a little bit. So yeah, you might prick your finger on a thorn, blood might come down, but that rose smells so sweet. And it might be worth it, right? Okay, last slide, and then inshallah we are done for the day, and then a break, and then Q&A. If you want a break, that is. What's our remedy? Number one, understand your envy doesn't impact anybody. It's not like God says, oh, you're envious? Okay, let me take this person, let me take that away from you. No. You can be envious all you want. Sorry. I can be envious all I want. Doesn't impact anything. The only person you're affecting, guess what, is you, and you've heard it 1,000 times. God does not give based on what someone else might think. Or you're mad at the fact that I give him this, for example, I don't know, this car or whatever. Okay, let me crash the car because you're envious. No, Baba, it doesn't work like that. Sorry. Understanding the envious does not impact the envied. Doesn't. Number two, be compassionate with the envied. Everyone has a story. What is looked upon on the outside as an easy life, a big house, whatever the case may be, ask them about their story. Find out what they went through. You'd be surprised to find out how much difficulty and hardships they went through to get there. Then now all of a sudden now, it's not that you're envious, you're actually compassionate. Say, oh my goodness, I'm so happy that you are now successful. You've been through your collapsed businesses and your poverty and your bankruptcies. Now to get to a point where you've built yourself back up, good for you. All you're seeing is the built back up. I tell a lot of my parents, tell your kids your story. Tell your kids your story. How you came here from wherever you came from. How you worked very hard, how you went from city to city, maybe house to house, let's say, for example. All they see right now is the flick of the switch. Not everything that you built with your own hands. How much poverty you went through. How many stories have I heard where a guy shows up in America with 50 bucks in his pocket and now he's a surgeon, for example. That didn't come overnight. Right? These kids have to hear a little bit of that story. Like I asked my mom recently how she came to Canada. She got married at 16 years old, my mom. She had my brother at 18 years old. She had my sister at 20 years old. At the age of 20 now, never left Karachi in her life, with a 1-year-old on one lap and a 3-year-old on one lap, she flew from Karachi to Toronto. And my dad was already in Toronto. I asked her, how'd you do it, Mom? She was, oh, bahut mushkil tha beta. Oh my God. She thought everything was haram on the plane, so she ate nothing, first of all. Right? Didn't know, like a little bit of turbulence, and all of a sudden, Nadi Ali and the Tasbihs are out. Didn't have a seat so she sat there, a 12-hour flight, can you imagine, 2 kids on her lap. If I have a backpack on my lap, I'm annoyed during a flight. And then she tells me, oh, we used to live in an apartment, and there was 4 of us and 5 of us, then this house and that house and this house, and my whole image of my parents now changed. Right? We're bratty Western kids. They have done things when they arrived here that we could never do today. Right? So everyone has a story. Don't be so quick to assume that there is a silver spoon in their mouth, they were given a blank check, blah, blah, blah. Okay? Number 3. Avoid treading the path of shaitan in comparison. The first person to compare was who? خَلَقْتَ لِي مِن نَارٍ وَخَلَقْتُهُ مِن طِينٍ. He created me from fire, and you created him from clay. And that was a huge thing. It really upset Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Really about fire and clay right now? Are you serious? That's what you're doing? You're comparing? You think you're better? So he's the first racist of mankind? Was shaitan? That this guy is a dirty guy, I'm a fire guy, I'm better than he is? No. Let's be careful. Don't compare. Allah gives according to capacity. There are some people, Allah knows, if I give this extra 0 in their income, I will never see them at the center. Sorry. Because a little bit of ghurur now. Thursday nights now, oh, I'm busy, got to run the business. Wait a second, you never miss Dua Kumil. You were front and center in the first usher, a volunteer serving chai. Yeah, I got to run the business, man. Right? So God says, I know. Be careful. You're asking me, give me the wisdom to know when to give you. Because I know what's going to happen if I give you. I'm going quickly here. Number 4. Yes, this is a nice verse. Do not compare yourselves. وَلَا تَتَمَنَّوْا مَا فَضَّلَ اللَّهِ بِهِ بَعْضُكُمْ عَلَى بَعْضٍ. Do not be those who compare themselves when it comes to Allah and what He's given others. Okay? Men shall have the benefit of what they earn, and women shall have the benefit of what they earn. And ask Allah of His grace. Allah knows all things. Inna Allah ala kana bi kulli shay'in alima. Okay? What's my next slide? Yeah. Okay. That's it. Any questions? 6:43 on the dot. Questions about envy? Yes. So yeah, nazar is there. I mean, we have to be a little bit careful with nazar. I think sometimes we go a little bit overboard with that, for sure. I think it's important that you have this this practice of every so often doing a sacrifice, if you can, of an animal back home, right? Especially if things are going well, alhamdulillah. You know, your success is, your business is booming, your kids are doing great, you and your spouse are on the same page. It's great to see. And yes, people, you can sense a little bit of the envious eyes on people. Protect yourself, for sure. But let's be careful. Not every struggle we're going through is someone doing jadoo on us or somebody doing some nazar on us. Let's be a little bit careful. Sometimes flat out, the hardship comes from God, guys. Flat out. It comes from God. He wants you and I to suffer, not so he enjoys it, a little bit of suffering for a little bit of gain, for sure. So yeah, protect yourself from that, for sure. Always. Not just once a year. Try to go once a month if you can. Now, it's quite cheap now, right? $1,500 for an animal, let's say in Africa or India, Pakistan. Make it a habit of yours to do that. It's a great, great act of worship. Anybody else? Yes?
So going back to the sacrifice.
Yes. Yeah.
So like how would you know when to sacrifice, what to sacrifice, and how?
Yeah, so you know your own state, right? You know your financial state, how much can I do it right now, blah, blah, blah. For example, you know, you come to a majlis and your kid is not well, your kid just threw up, his stomach is hurting, and someone's asking you for a ride. At that moment, you can't. Your kid's struggling. Or let's say, for example, you don't have the financial means. Says, you know, person comes, I need 1,000, I can give you 100, 150 maybe, 200. That's it, right? So as much as you can give. Sometimes you can't give, that's fine. But the idea is that sometimes people have and they hoard when someone is in need. We don't realize that the one we're giving to or giving for will double that amount, right? Sometimes people like me are a little bit hesitant to give away for what I have. I have to have a little bit more yaqeen that the one that I'm giving for will refill that very same pocket that I just emptied, right? So you have to understand your own position. Is that what you meant?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to sit if you don't mind while you ask. Yeah.
So I don't know if this example would be considered for sacrifice.
Okay.
Like, working as a corporate job,
Right.
For family-wise, right? So knowing when to sacrifice earning to spend time with family, or vice versa, you know,
Ah.
earning to spend, you know, time with family.
Right. Right.
Is that a portion of sacrifice?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
So then how would you?
Yeah, so I mean, again, we have to do a little bit of accountability where, you know, am I working like 14-hour days, let's say, for example? Do I have to do that? Am I not taking time off? Am I just sort of tunnel vision going through the fact that, look, I got to power through this corporate world, and then, you know, trust me, we'll have plenty of time in a year, let's say, to travel and do this and blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, she needs you now. The kids need you now. So that's that moment where you sort of like, you sacrifice a little bit, knowing it might be a slower build, but now you're taking your family with you, for example, right? I used to travel a lot, and at a time where my kids were young. And my wife, God bless her, she's incredible, she would never say a word. But I didn't want to wait for her to say a word to me. So now what I tried to do is I try to travel with my family now. So I took them to Houston last week, I brought my son to Atlanta this time, right? Just trying to make an experience out of it, right? And I've limited my travel quite a bit, but you know, you got to sometimes read the room, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah. So sorry.
No, please do. Go ahead.
But in the sense, like when you're sacrificing, you have to take into account whether like what your parents are, you know, like for young kids, like what your parents will say if they say yes or no to what you're wanting to do, or what your spouse will say yes or no, and then what their decision is. Do you have to?
Sorry, I don't follow that question. Sorry, can you just?
Let's say when you're wanting to give, you know, charity, right?
Yeah.
But your parents say no, you know, let's hold off on this.
Oh, okay.
Let's not do this right now. We'll do it.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's different. If you think that at this moment that we shouldn't give the charity, then that's fine. But my experience is that charity is unique. We might see it as an X's and O's and a revenue expense reality, but in the eyes of Allah, it's really, you know, that's that moment where we believe Allah will give us risk min haythu la yahtasib, from a source that we never even accounted for. Right? So the moment that we give out of trust of Allah, Allah will refill that pocket of ours. That's where that yaqeen comes in a little bit. I'm not saying for you to fight the family. If right now we can't afford to donate here or go here, that's fine. But I'm saying when you are able to comfortably give and we don't give, that's a little bit of that individualism. That's a problem. Yeah. Yes?
Is he done? Yeah.
You can ask him, yeah.
So we, growing up here, obviously our parents are from the Indo-Pak.
Yes.
Like when we were young and we would see, because you don't see beggars like you see in India and Pakistan, not as much.
Yeah.
So when we would see a beggar and you try to give them money, right?
Yeah.
Nah, the crackhead.
Yeah.
Try to use it on drugs or
Yeah.
the fact we don't know that.
Your mom would say crackhead?
Not crackhead, but anyway, so now we're with our kids, right? So we had that embedded in us that, my mom said you don't give it to them because it's a crackhead.
It's the same crackhead too, probably, yeah. I think there are other ways to give than the guy at the red light. I'm saying if you feel like, first of all, this idea that they're all going to use it for drugs and alcohol, that I think is a little bit. I think if you go through that motion where you give your child the $5 or whatever you want to give, roll down the window, let him give it, I think that's great. Then there are other ways, right? I mean, when you go for ziyarat, if you go for ziyarat, you can do khidmat there, for example. You can go downtown to the soup kitchens here and the shelters here, and there's so much now. I'm sure Atlanta has all sorts of stuff to make it a family issue. I think it's a great issue.
But if you're in the car with your kids,
Yeah.
does it look? I mean, it's a bad impression that Dad, this guy's asking we should give him money.
Yeah.
So what do you tell your kids? No or yes?
Well, at that moment, you can say, okay, let's give, but let's give over here if you don't mind. And then you go home and you make it a point to go online somewhere or somewhere. Yeah. Like, that's beautiful. You don't want to crush that, but just redirect it towards maybe somewhere where you know it's being used properly. Not always. If every single time you pass by the same person, once in a while I think it's good just for a learning method to give them. I'm not assuming this guy is always using it for drugs, right? That's up to him. Our job is to give, right? Yeah.
But if you're giving for Allah's sake, then it doesn't matter.
Well, that's one approach. Yeah, that's one approach. That's one approach. Is that you give, you do what you're asked to do, let him do whatever he wants to do with the money. Yeah. Sorry? Yeah, give him halim, give him nahari, absolutely. Burn his esophagus, that's great, yeah. Sorry? He won't ask again. Anybody else? Any more questions? Yes?
I know we weren't able to cover all the important points that you had in your presentation, and that's our loss. But I noticed anger was there.
Yes.
Narcissism was there.
Yes.
Could you, I don't know if you could summarize and
In 10 seconds or less? Oh boy. No, the only thing about the anger part is that the Deen does not say all anger is wrong. Number one. So anger is a natural emotion. In fact, if anger is governed properly, it actually can contribute to some critical traits for us. For example, courage is one of them. Shuja'at. Courage comes from the faculty of anger. So it's possible that somebody doesn't have enough anger, right? So when you don't have enough anger, for example, you become a coward. And for men especially, who your job is to protect your family, قُوا أَنفُسِكُمْ وَأَهْلِيكُمْ, not in the Quran says, protect your family and yourselves from the fire. 3 o'clock in the morning, somebody's at the door, for example, and you send your wife to go open the door, that's a problem, right? John, go, John, go. It's like, no. You go. Okay? And then there are those who are excessively angry, who are, as Imam Syed says, foaming at the mouth dogs. At the moment you say something, they'll bark right away. Then there's that middle ground, and that middle ground is people who is courageous. So that was the idea, that how do we get to that, and the dominance of anger, and the importance of the tongue, and how verbal scars, and sometimes they don't heal, and that was sort of my anger presentation. And narcissism is more or less the idea that, it really is the idea that sometimes when you want to control others, and that's what a narcissist does, right? Controls others. It drives them crazy when you are trying to release them from that control. That really is sort of a reflection of the fact that, you have lost control of your own life, so you want to control the life of others. And how to regain that life of yours. And I don't know about all of you, but I'm finding that there are more and more people close to us who are showing, this narcissistic behavior lots. And we don't know how to handle it. We think, and the other, inshallah, when I come back one day, someday, to complete this, is the fact that sometimes we think that Sila Rahim means that I have to put up with this behavior. And I don't. We're not cutting ties, but we are putting boundaries around people. Sometimes siblings, sometimes cousins, sometimes in-laws, sometimes, I'm sorry, that I don't always have to be everywhere. Right now, if I don't feel like being a victim of their narcissism, I'm going to take a break and have some self-respect and not be a doormat. Islam doesn't give us ijazah to be a doormat for anybody. Islam says you are a person, you are somebody, have some self-respect. So that's a nutshell of what we're talking about in those other areas. And then there's the idea of hope and desire and blah, 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 but those are other discussions, yeah. Anybody else? Yes.
In respect to anger, sometimes I guess the question is that is it good to have a change in volume and seriousness when it
Have a change in volume, you're saying?
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
So for example, naturally when you get angry,
Yeah.
your tone of voice will become more stern or
Correct.
increased. Is that good if it's for the right thing, or is it? Do you
Yeah.
have to
No.
have a low tone?
No, absolutely. I think sometimes the anger depends on who it's for. Is absolutely the moments before the war of Khandak, where Imam Ali destroys Amr ibn Abdawad, the Prophet calls him a dog. Who is going to silence the barking of this dog? That's harsh words, right? I mean, if you translate it into Urdu, it's really nasty. This person kept taunting anyone in that tent that can challenge me, come out. He addresses his companions. Anyone there to silence the barking of this dog, right? Those are harsh words. The Prophet of God. Sometimes that anger is important. Now, how we express the anger is a whole conversation, right?
Syed, can we ask the attendees to scan the QR code? I think we can just transition without a break. You already got.
It's up to you guys. I'm okay. Do you guys need a break at all? You're okay?
So if you want to ask a question, just scan the QR code and Slido will pop up, and it's anonymous, so no one's gonna know your question.
Use the mic. So we have two moderators.
Yeah.
Will moderate the questions. Like Rosa said, just scan the QR code to post your questions anonymously, and they will moderate the questions.
Should we ask if anybody here has questions first, or do you want to just go straight to the Slido?
So we're not taking a break, straight to Q&A?
okay with that?
I'm fine. Yeah, I'm good. Alhamdulillah.
Do you need a break?
No, I don't need a break. I'm good, thanks. Chai lena, if you don't mind. Sorry.
So we do have a follow-up on the narcissism portion.
Yes.
Can you touch on some parts of the narcissistic portion, and what can someone do if they're in that situation?
So I kind of briefly touched on that already, is that it depends on who that person is in your life. So the first thing that we have to understand is that Islam places a very, very heavy emphasis on self-respect. Took me a long time to realize that idea. I thought that Islam, thank you, buddy. I thought Islam for sure talked about the idea that, the more you crush yourself, the more pious you are. Whereas, we have to understand a little bit of our self-worth and a little bit of our self-respect. And so when you realize your self-respect and you do everything to preserve that respect of yours, it's worthy, right? Anything of worth now, you go above and beyond to preserve that. Makes sense. And if you've identified, it's very hard to identify some of the signs, you identify this person with you, it could be your spouse, God forbid, or your siblings, or someone very close to you that you can't cut out of your life. It's easy when that person is someone who's not your family. Cutting them out slowly, it might be a little bit easier than, let's say, a first cousin or an uncle or, like I said, an in-law, or, right? So right away, if it's someone that is a friend of yours, then I would honestly make the necessary moves to slowly phase them out of your life. There are ways to do that. Not be so connected, not be quick to respond, you know, maintain your akhlaq, right? Blah, 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 this and that. If need be, have a talk with them. But then the hard part is when it's family. And we can't escape family. They're everywhere, they're at every family function, they're gonna be there, we're gonna be there. At that moment, then there's boundaries. And we know from a hadith that says Sila Rahim has a limited, a very, very basic, bare minimum level of salam, how are you? That's all you need to do to maintain, right? You don't need to sit there and take their abuse or not stand up to them, or blah, blah, blah. So I think once you've identified that this person is family, but I can't cut ties, I'm not asking anyone here to cut ties, but they are a classic narcissist, then at that moment you have to set boundaries. If you have the support of your spouse, for example, it's your mother-in-law or father-in-law, or your sister-in-law, or someone that just causes you a lot of heartache, and your spouse, hopefully, I pray to God, supports those boundaries, where look, there's a function happening at my house, let's say, but you as the wife does not want to go there. Your husband says, that's cool, I'll take the kids, you stay at home, and I will cover for you at my mom's house. Now right now, I don't feel like hearing about how dark I got, or how much weight I've gained, or how I don't have a child yet, or blah, 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 this and that, right? I don't want to hear any of that right now, you know, so then those boundaries should be respected. Boundaries are very, Islam has no problem with boundaries. No problem with boundaries.
Thank you. Another question is, how do we teach our kids to do ithar?
I think a lot of it is charity. I think, you know, if you guys can do, and I think you guys as new age parents, you guys are really incredible. The things I see online, the things I see you guys do are really, really good. I know families that have toy drives in their own families. That as opposed to us getting our 15th set of Legos, let's go ahead and use our Eid and our Eid money to maybe buy a small gift and send it to Yemen, or to Iraq, or to Syria. Write a card to them. These kind of things now, you have to, we all have to sort of teach our kids to think outside of them. That makes sense. Because there's a lot of talk at them and for them, and you're this, and you're great, you're a superstar. You know, there's a smiley face on your quiz, blah, 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 and that's fantastic. But pair that with the idea that, look, there are kids your age that don't have anything. I took my kids, like I said, to India, right? Last December, villages of India. I took them to schools. I was asked to speak at several schools, and I would take them on purpose to show them that this is a grade 5 class that you also have, right? There's no big bay windows. There's no individual desks. There's no hooks with your name on them. There's 50 kids in one classroom, on the ground, right? And they're loving school in their uniform, straight A's. So it's really eye-opening for my kids, for example. So if you are able to give them those small experiences, I think we should be able to do that. Right? A family fundraiser for flood victims in Pakistan, for example. I don't know. Earthquake victims here, blah, blah, blah. Right? It's important.
In regards to posting on social media.
I knew that was going to cause some.
Yeah. Should we not post anything?
No!
In terms of keeping the mind.
Just yaar, just think about it a little bit. Maybe I don't need to post everything that me and my spouse are doing.
So if
by
it
the way,
hurts someone else, does it come back like, is it our fault? If it hurts someone else,
No, not like that. Just let's be a little bit conscious. And by the way, if you're someone who posts a lot about your spouse, those marriages are the most in trouble, I find.
Is there any bad nazar and stuff like that?
Possibly. It's not even bad nazar. It's just the idea that I don't want it to be that someone else sits there and and I know it's a reach, right? I know a lot of you might not agree with what I'm saying. To stop and think sometimes that, maybe I don't need to shove my happiness down everyone's throat all the time. Once in a while is okay, but but I'm not saying that all of a sudden now you're responsible for their this. No, I'm just saying, just think a little bit about others before you post everything, that's all. That's all I'm saying. How many times can we do that? I don't have, those numbers don't exist, but just being aware of it, that's all. Yeah.
I think there was a follow-up question on the narcissist question.
Please.
What if the person is the spouse?
Yeah, so that's when boundaries are one thing, but you got to have a real conversation with the spouse. That's when like, I don't know, I mean, you have to be able to have you should be able to have a difficult talk with your spouse about their deficiencies and your deficiencies. One thing that you can do, my married couples in the audience, the best gift you can give to your sibling, to your spouse, sorry, is to allow them to be vulnerable with you. Okay? So if they've now elected to open up to you and let you into this inner secret world that they kept a secret from everybody, and you don't give them the proper response, or you're doing this, you know, watching monkeys eat strawberries, right, on Instagram, then she'll never open up to you again. If you're letting her open up to you and sharing with you her most, you know, her deepest deficiencies, how she sees herself, and you respond, and then you encourage, and then you comfort, oh my God, that's it. That's all she wants. That's all we want as well. If I'm able to sometimes, and as men, sometimes I have horrible days. It gets too much sometimes for me, right? I miss my father, for example. The community is just too much, for example. You think you're not doing enough, you know, blah, blah, blah. And it gets to a point where she can tell that I'm very quiet, but it's very hard for me to open up to her. And the few moments I have, and she's been incredible about it, it just thinks, you know what, I feel like you have somebody in your life. You're not at it alone. This dunya is really lonely sometimes. If you can do that, then you've created a bond that no one else has with you. Then you can talk about the fact that, look, what you're doing is controlling. I don't like it. Sometimes they're not aware of it. So at that moment, yeah, boundaries is one thing, but a real talk sometimes, and multiple talks sometimes is very, very important. Yeah.
So we had a couple of questions on anger. What's the best way to help control your anger in the daily practice, especially with friends and family?
Yeah. You know, the hadiths talk about anger being fire, and, you know, water being the one that takes out that fire. Now that water could be faith, that water could be actual water on your face, it could be, but to me, I would find that, you know, we have to know our trigger words, our trigger people. That's huge. So I don't know how it was here. I oftentimes tell the story that during COVID, Toronto was really bad. We locked down like several times across 3 years. So I was home a lot. A lot of my programs I did in my basement. I made a makeshift studio, blah, blah, blah. But I was home a lot. And so when you're home a lot, and, you know, and my wife and I are close, we talk to each other all the time and this and that. So I began to realize that I have a long list of trigger words. Because when she would say these words, I would lose my mind. I wouldn't throw things around the house or anything. I would just like, I'd get quiet, I would walk away, and then she'd say, you know, when I say these words to you, you lose your mind. I go, no, I don't. Yes, you do. And so we tackled each word one by one and went all the way back to the source. So there's a long process that I realized, why are these things making me angry? The short term is to remove yourself from that situation. Go for a walk, find an outlet. And sometimes the Quran says, كَاذِمِينَ الْغَيْظِ. Just swallow it, man. Like, don't punch a wall, don't scream in a pillow, don't sit there and binge eat or binge watch. Just swallow it and move on. It's hard to do, but there's barakat in that. But there are long ways and short ways to do things.
My spouse struggles to pray. How can I help?
So the last thing that the spouse wants to hear is that they're struggling to pray. So they will tell you that you are my spouse, you are not my parent. That's the first thing they'll tell you. So unfortunately, the bad news is you can't do much about a grown adult who doesn't want to pray. What you can do is pray in front of him. Open your door and just scream that namaz from your lungs, man. Let them feel it, right? Okay? Have an adhan clock. Make it a whole family experience. Have the kids come, blah, 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 this and that. And hopefully, if there's a beating heart in there somewhere, they might get up and join you one day. That's about all you can do, right? Indirectly, if you're sitting in a Q&A like this, you can talk about the fact, can you please tell us about the benefits of salat, and hopefully he's listening. That's what you can do. But he's not a 12 to 10-year-old child, right? If you say it'd be nice if you prayed with us, right? And I'm assuming it's a husband. I'm sorry, but yeah. I'm sorry. But yeah, you can't, you're not my mother, you're my wife, blah, blah, blah. And then that's when you'll lose him. So it's more by amal than by words. This tea is fantastic, holy smokes. It's great. There's something in here I'm telling you about, right? I don't know what it is. It makes me reflect quite a bit. Tell me afterward what it is, yeah.
No. How can you politely avoid wedding events that have music and mixed gatherings without hurting family members?
I don't know why they don't have shut up. Why am I embarrassed for you? It kills me, man. Like with pride, they say, oh yeah, this and that, Shandar Shadi hui hai. Are you kidding me? You broke every book, every law in the book. I don't understand. And I'm like, oh, no, my aunt is coming from Tennessee. I have to be at the airport, so I can't make it, this and that. But here's my $50, and here's my Ferrero Rocher. Mubarak oblongo, mashallah. Right? Excuses upon excuses. It depends on who the people are. If it's somebody who's close to you, you can flat out say, and obviously I'm in a different position, but my mom now, mashallah, has earned that spot, where she says flat out, okay, I'm sorry, main mix shaadi mein nahi jati hu, main sorry. Now, if you can build that himmat and courage to say, I don't go in mixed weddings, all the power to you. But that's not the majority of us, I'm sorry. Because we're so worried about backlash. Oh, acha, badi manti ho tum, right? You hear that too, right? So you have to be a little bit careful. Hopefully over time, they'll understand this person doesn't attend these events. But sometimes you have to say, you know what, or just don't show up. They say, oh, you went there? Yeah, I'm sorry, I couldn't make it. One thing I've learned is that we don't need to share every detail of why I couldn't come. There are some people who press you as if you're on a witness stand, right? You didn't come to my majlis, yeah, I couldn't make it. Why? Where'd you go? I had an appointment. Which appointment? I couldn't come, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Next year I'll try to come. But if you can tell them why, that'll be great. If you can't tell them why, then just say I couldn't come, I'm sorry.
When you were saying mixed wedding, if you have a wedding with the ladies on one side, gents on one side.
What is a mixed gathering? Are you sure you want to know?
Yeah.
Careful. Okay. There's a verse in the Quran, right, that says, don't ask questions or the answer will get you in trouble. Ignorance is bliss. So Slido.com is out of the question now?
No, it's here. I think they're just following up.
That's okay, I understand. No, that's good. So, okay. It's good. Good questions. And ask me for follow-up, please. So look, people will say, well, this is a misgathering, Milana. What's wrong with this? Right? Obviously, this is a different environment than a wedding is, obviously. Right? What constitutes a misgathering, which is not allowed in Islam, is number one is the purpose of that gathering, number one. The way they are dressed, number two. And then the nature or the possibility of sin, number three. Those are three, okay? So in an environment like this, we're here to educate ourselves. There is a good gap between the genders. Our sisters are well covered. Our brothers are focusing up here, right? There's no festive environment. There's no reason to look over on this side, blah, blah, blah. This is a great environment, okay? In a wedding, and this is obvious to you guys, right? I mean, sometimes we don't want to hear the answer, even though we know the answer. I'm sorry, right? Women are wearing bhari kapde, mashallah, right? They're wearing full suits, right? A lot of bling, a lot of, ching ching, a lot of noises. There's makeup on their face, like a lot of makeup to the point where, have you seen my wife, right? Right? And then, of course, it is a very festive, happy environment. People are laughing, people are giggling, people are mingling, people are, right? Dingling, they're doing all sorts of stuff. All of that is very conducive to seeing sisters in your community in a state that you don't normally see them at. So now, all of a sudden, this young, or this sister that you would work with on a youth community or a project, let's say at the Jaffari Center, is now dressed from head to toe, and she looks incredible. Because she has makeup on and she's wearing this fancy kapra. You're like, oh, That's different from what I saw last week. And as men especially, it does not take much, I'm sorry, men. All of a sudden now we think, oh my goodness. So the next week, Sunday school, like, salam, how are you? Good, how are you? Right? Don't tell me it's not like that. Okay? So that's all a problem. So a mixed gathering are two separate halls. Hold on, please, 10 follow-ups, no doubt. Two separate halls where they're not visible. Not a see-through fence, please, for guys, all you see is eyes. No, a separate hall, okay? Not a dance floor in between, not a massive hall, even eventually at the lobby, at the bartender, getting a Diet Coke, there's gonna be some mingling. The idea is that a man should not see you dressed like that, and a man should watch their eyes. It's very hard in that environment. Colors everywhere, makeup everywhere, men dressed in suits. Sometimes men have a nice fade, a sick beard, a nice suit. They look incredible, blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of who on this side and he on that side. And that's all a sinful environment. Has to be avoided. Now, follow up, go ahead.
So in a community like ours,
Yes.
okay, without having any kind of mixer or mixed gathering, how are the youngsters?
Oh, are you kidding me? Come on. That's the only way to find a spouse? No. No. Not just this community. Can I get a tissue box from somewhere, please, if you don't mind? Sorry. It's not the only way. So thank you very much. So programs like this are good. And by the way, it's funny how there was a lot more separation when I was growing up in my community. No social media back then, that's how old I am. Didn't know what people were doing in their personal life. And somehow I met my wife through the community. Okay? We served on youth committees, we served in madrasas, blah, blah, blah. And then when she begged me to marry her, I said yes. What's so funny? I don't understand. It's okay, let it be live. I'm not scared. This is live, he says. Yeah. So I think that eventually those who want to know who's in the community, they have other ways of doing it. Nowadays, the problem is that, in fact, these young guys know too much about each other. So when you say to yourself, oh, yeah, chad ladka hai, this is no, mom, you have no idea what it's like. Go to his Instagram feed, oh my God, he takes these pictures and these selfies, he was there on Friday night, blah, blah, blah. He's been with that girl and this girl and blah, blah, blah. Just things that normally we wouldn't know. So it's not that they don't know who's there, they know too much about each other. That's the problem. But weddings are not where you want to meet people, I'm sorry. You know eventually whose daughter is whose son is who. It's not the way to do it. Sorry.
Okay, we're going to
More
stop.
follow-up.
No, I think we should stop that series of questions.
Oh, okay. There's a
should move
mankabat
on.
music question.
Okay.
Yeah. So look, obviously, I mean, if you're going to use Bollywood tunes to attach, the dhikr of Imam Hussain or the fadal of Imam Ali, that's a problem. Flat out, it's a problem. There's a whole talk about music in Islam. One day, someday, we'll do a 4-day course on music. It's a comprehensive conversation. But very quickly, a song that is considered to be jaiz or haram in Islam has two components to it. Either the instruments used or the lyrics that are used. Very quickly, guys. So sometimes there are songs that are a cappella in nature. No instruments, nothing, just 4 guys, 3 guys, 2 girls, just harmonizing. But they're talking about, for example, things that are, problematic in the eyes of Islam. Okay? Men and women and love and romance and this and that. That, even though there's not a single instrument, that's a problem in Islam. Then there are those things, for example, that have no lyrics at all. They're just instrumental. Depending on the instrument, that alone is very problematic. Then there are those things where the lyrics are okay. Talk about Imam Ali, talk about, for example, Imam Hussain. But the music that's being used is a problem. Okay? Or, for example, there's spoken rap music, for example. A hip-hop guy does a solo, let's say, rap performance. No instrument, but talks about drugs and crack and blah, 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 and violence. It's a problem. Both of them have to be okay. Okay? So I'll give you an example, and this is where I really get into a little bit of trouble here. That's okay, though. In the Qawwali industry, when Marhum Nusrat Ali Khan was at his peak, he had the tabla, the duff, whatever you call it. He had an accordion, I think. He had his voice, and he had, the musqalandar. Okay? That package, nothing wrong with it. The problem with qawalis is not the actual music, but the live qawali shows where women come and start, mashallah, showering. That's a little bit of a problem, right? They come and they start dancing with their money. Not women, men too. That becomes a problem. But you're in your car and you're putting this on, that's okay. The problem was with Nusrat is that near the end of his life, he would get Hollywood composers to come in and begin to work with him on his qawaz. So Eric Clapton, for example, is a very famous Hollywood singer. He would come and compose music for Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan, where the first 8 minutes is nothing but instrumental music, Hollywood mainstream music, and then he's talk about, Dum Dum Ali Ali, right? So it's great, Fadail, oh my God, you know what, this and that, it's beautiful, but it's attached to Hollywood music. It's a problem. So our manqabats are no different, unfortunately. If you've identified that this manqabat is attached to a Bollywood song, and you're tipping, you're tapping your feet on the ground, or you're bobbing your head, for example, it's a problem. It's a problem. And that's all I'm going to say about that. I'm not calling out any sort of artists or mentioning names. You know who they are and how they are, but there's no need for that. The drive we have to listen to these things is not about the music. We want to hear someone elevate through their Shairi Imam Hussain, talk about the Fadal of Amir al-Mu'mineen, talk about the greatness of Rasulullah and Nath, for example. You don't need to attach, this soundtrack or that soundtrack, let's say, for example, to make it more enticing or to increase your views. You're selling your soul out for that, right? If you're doing that, that is.
Thank you for that.
Any follow-up on that? Is that okay? Oh, sorry, yeah. Bismillah.
All right. Couple questions about envious people. How do we deal with them?
People,
Yeah. How do we deal with them? There are certain people that are just born this way, that they always speak negatively about others and can't build anyone up. How do we deal with these?
So
kind of
you
people?
are someone who's hearing
Yes,
this?
that's what it sounds
you're
like.
You're not the envied.
No,
Oh,
you're
yeah.
not the envied. You're just
Yeah.
around people that are envious.
Yeah, so I think that unfortunately I find that people do that to get, thank you, attention, okay? To get attention from people, which means they're starving for attention, okay? So they have to go through their process of why they're starving for attention. The last thing you can do to them is give them that attention. So when they talk about, gossip about this person or that person, and everyone's eyes now, like a whiplash, go towards them, say, okay, what else? Mm-hmm. Now they have, oh my God, I have 10 people now, all eyes are on me. Oh my God, this is exactly what I wanted. And so you add your mirchi, your masala, your namak to a, to a normal story, right? Because you have the attention. The last thing you want to do is, right? Don't want to play holier than thou, say, oh, this is haram, how dare we? No, change the subject, get up and walk away. Make them feel like I'm not interested, right? And that's all you can do. If, again, the himmat is there, if we're able to confront people, which we are not able to do more and more, I find this year, not this year, this era, then if you can say that, look, you know what, it's not becoming of you. You don't always have to be. I don't want you to be known as somebody who has, info on everybody, for example. I don't want that to be, right? So if you can do that, that'd be great. If not, by your action, I think it's very obvious that you're uncomfortable with that conversation.
And then if it's directed towards yourself, what do you do then?
They're coming at you directly, or you've heard through another source?
No, coming at you directly.
Yeah, just remind them of your story, that you're seeing one portion of it. Do you know what I've gone through to get what I've gone through? Do you know what we've been through, for example? Right? There are couples that have been without a child for 10 years, and then all of a sudden, every year now, mashallah, God gives them a child. All you see is the last 3, 4. You don't see the first decade of their marriage, where they would do all sorts of amals and this and that to get a child, right? That you don't see, and then, again, there's power in information. And I really believe everyone has a story. And the more you're able to know that story, I think the more compassionate you are towards those that you think you envy, when really it's not envy, it's something inside of you that needs to be fixed.
Thank you. How can fathers play a big role in the daughters' lives?
Yeah, that's a good question. Good question. So it's a limited role only because there are things that she goes through that as men we can't understand. The biggest thing that as dads that you can do for your daughter is build her self-esteem. Okay? So, it's a great jashan happening. It's a massive jashan now. We gotta go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. And your daughter comes down and she looks beautiful, mashallah. Decked out for Ghadir, decked out, let's say, for Eid, blah blah blah. Take a moment and say, you know what? I'm just thankful I have beautiful daughters like you. Goes a long way. Goes a long way. A random hug here and there goes a long way. Ew, gross. It doesn't matter. Long way, right? And then, on top of feeding a little bit of that self-esteem, the best thing you can do, not only for your daughter, but really for all your kids, is make them visible in your eyes. There's nothing worse than being invisible at home, where I'm trying to speak and no one is listening to a word I'm saying. Or I open my mouth and I'm shushed by those who are older than I am. I said, "Tum chote ho, chup raho, bas, that's it. No one asked you." You hear that enough times and you feel invisible. When you feel invisible, you actually believe that you're invisible. And that has a lot of repercussions, sometimes 30 years after that, I'm sorry. There are grown men who have zero self-confidence. They can't hold a job, they can't raise their kids, their wives now are babysitting them because they're a man-child. All that stems from the fact that they were invisible growing up. If you can allow your kid to be visible, right, ask them, talk to them, hear them when they tell you. Don't dismiss them, right? The Prophet would turn towards people who would talk to him. Not speak in their peripheral. She's speaking to you here, you're talking over here. No, turn, man. Let her know that right now, everything you're saying is of utmost importance, right? Checking in on her, knocking on her door. I have a 16-year-old at home. She's 16 years old. How's it going? Good, Baba, I'm okay. Are you sure? Yeah. Then when I press and press and press, then she opens up a little bit, right? With her mom, though, it's different, right? So we're limited, especially as the girl gets a little bit older, right? But what we can do is, her self-esteem is very, very important, especially for girls. Number two is to make her feel visible, right? If she's coming to you with a problem, don't dismiss it. Don't silence her. Don't make her feel invisible, please. Listen to her. Everything she's going through has to be your priority. Right? Don't worry, oh God, you guys are so dramatic and blah, 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 this and that. No, listen to her. It is a dramatic generation a little bit, but they are going through a lot more than we ever went through. Right? We can't just dismiss that, oh, these kids have no idea what anxiety is and depression is, and I'll show them anxiety. No, hold on one second. It is a social media world. It's very difficult to be a youth today. Very, very hard. Right? And we have to understand a little bit that. Be a little bit sympathetic.
Is it true that if we ask dua through our marhumin, it becomes accepted faster?
I haven't heard that. If I want a dua to be accepted faster, I ask my mom.
But if your mom has passed, or
Then
if your parents, you go to the grave. That's what I think the question was asking.
She has a one-way ticket to God. Moms do, not dads. Sorry, guys. It's very blatant in Islam. 3 times higher level than fathers. Yeah.
Okay. Sometimes I'm pious and thankful. Then I fall knowing that I'm enjoying something which is haram. Then I try again to be pious. Is my heart inverted?
No. Your heart is doing exactly what it should do. It's fluctuating. So as long as you are thankful towards what you have and you recognize that God has given you that, then it will be 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 4 steps forward, 1 step back, 10 steps forward. Eventually, then that step back will eventually fade away. We have to be a little bit fair to ourselves, guys. We have to be a little bit fair to ourselves. I'm not giving any a reason or a ticket to slip and fall. There are moments where shaitan gets the best of us. Let's be realistic. There are moments where we're going to slip and fall. And God knows that. So it's not the fact that we fell. He wants to find out what you do after you fall. Do you boo-hoo and lie there? See, I knew it. I'm pathetic. I'm useless. God says, get back up. Come back to me. Ask for forgiveness and move on. I'm going to forgive you. Right? But make that into So, I mean, that's what it is. It's the idea that we're to be a little bit fair in ourselves.
How do you convince yourself of the philosophy behind avoiding haram when Allah forbidding it is not enough?
How do you understand?
Because they're saying that just knowing that an act is haram isn't enough for them to stop from doing it. How do you convince yourself of it?
Tough one. So I think that sometimes, unfortunately, we have to taste a little bit of the effects of the gunah and the sin. If we don't understand the fact that it's enough, you know, it's funny you mentioned that. It's funny how the way that we parent today is so much more different than how we were parented growing up. You know, if my dad said, you know, you can't do something, there was no follow-up questions to that. It wasn't like, but why, Dad? Sometimes my kids will say, you know, we're not going here today, or you're not going, for example, and they'll ask why, and I have to remind them, because I said you're not going there today. And we have to build a little bit of that towards God, that it's enough to do something because God says so. It's enough to avoid something because God says so. So to me, the most beautiful answer sometimes when they ask you, why do you wear hijab, or why do you fast, or why do you pray, or why do you keep a beard, or why do you go to this and that, and you simply say, because my God told me to do it, that's the most beautiful answer. It just means that you're a slave, right, and you're submissive. I said that last night at MCC, right? So I think that we have to train ourselves, and it should be enough. When it's not enough, then God finds other ways to tell you, either the effects of it, if you're somebody who's a habitual liar, and one lie breeds another lie, then you start to feel this effect, and you see it in front of you, then maybe you might wake up. But it's tough if you don't understand the fact that, you know, God said don't do it, that should be enough. So it's a tough one to answer, I'll be honest.
We have a few spouse-related questions about selection, also about the patience, especially when it's really difficult to find somebody, what to look for, what are some things that can be overlooked, things like this.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm happy you guys asked that question. So Islam has laid down a criteria for a spouse, and there are parents in this room, I'm sure, who have kids who are at that age where they're looking for a spouse. There are young guys and young sisters who themselves now have begun that conversation. So go through that. Know what Islam says are 4 or 5 of those things that are the bones of it, okay? And those 5 things should be sufficient to get married. Sometimes I think the problem, and this is it'll be a little bit of a long-winded answer, I hope not, but I'll try to get to the crux of it. Sometimes our young guys are looking for certainties in a person that will only happen after marriage. Okay? So God says, I've given you the skeleton of what you're looking for. Now, you know, the fillings, all that comes after marriage. Okay? Is he a fun-loving guy, for example? Is he a social guy, for example? Does he like to be, I don't know, adventurous? It's hard to tell all that before marriage. You know, the 4 or 5, obviously, you know, the first thing is that they have to be God-fearing. Like, there has to be an element of God in their life. You can recognize that through your research. And that's one thing is, please don't rush this process. Don't rush this process. Okay? Don't jump at the first rishta that comes to your door, because, oh my God, after that, who knows who will come at the door, and they'll figure it out afterwards. Say, look, Mom, I have to marry a girl who wears hijab. It's okay, put it on her head after marriage. Okay? I don't want a guy who doesn't have a beard. It's okay, teach him salat after you get married. Don't do that, please. It's a disaster. Okay? Don't rush the process. Number 1. Number 2 is do your homework. Do your homework. Ask around multiple families how this family is. Okay? Ask whoever you can. Dig deep. Find out. It's the one area where ghibat is actually allowed in Islam. People call me and say, tell me about this boy from Toronto. You know him very well. I tell them the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I have to. It's a matter of life. You're not buying shoes here, right? You're marrying a person, right? So he's great at this, you know, he needs help here. This is really a red flag for me. If you can sort of understand that, that's really, really important, right? So if someone's coming to you asking you about a family you know, please tell them everything you know and let them decide, okay? Thirdly, it is always going to be a risk. Always going to be a risk. They can put on a great face when it comes to the getting to know phase. Okay? They made the best chai and she wore the best clothes and this and that, and he was sharif in front of you and this and that, had his head down the whole time, this and that. Badmash, but outside he's sharif. You can do all that. It's a risk. Okay? As long as you do your thorough research, you pray to Allah, inshallah, it'll work. But I've seen young guys and sisters who rush to get married, take on the world to marry this person, and within 3 months now, there is a divorce. Happens too many times. Okay? So it's important that that happens. Now, the other point I want to make, and I'm sorry, I'm everywhere right now, is that if you are someone in this room who's ready to get married and you want to speak to your parents, number one, mom and dad, please be open to that. It's a brand new for you. Okay? I never had the himmah to tell my father and my mother I want to get married. Never had that himmah. Okay? They would ask me, is there anyone you have in mind? So I would say, Dad, what about this family? Right? But if your child is coming to you and saying, Ammi, Baba, I am ready now to get married, number one, that means that you have created, alhamdulillah, an open mahal inside your house, which is beautiful, which is absolutely beautiful. That means they can come to you for anything. Okay? Number two, it also means that I haven't found anybody yet. I'm not running around town with anybody yet. I'm coming to you asking you, can you help me in this process? At that moment, both of you, the child and the parent, sit down and please make a criteria list. What are deal breakers, what are not deal breakers? There are some things your parents have in your mind that you don't know, and vice versa. Come and combine the list and have one list, and be true to that list. Okay? Don't assume you know what your daughter wants or son wants. Don't assume that your parents know what you want. Have that actual conversation. Okay? I don't care if she's, gori and patli and dubli, and I don't care about all that stuff. I want this in her. Okay? Because believe it or not, my mother does unofficial matchmaking inside Toronto, and I beg her to stop doing it on me. Please stop doing it. Because then I get the phone calls, Beta, ye halat bahut kharab. I say, yes, Ami, bahut kharab hai, I'm telling you. And after all these conferences and workshops and majalis and this and that, still she gets phone calls, and the 8th or 9th criteria of this girl's side or boy's side is something that's non-physical. First 7 are all physical, from height to shade of color to weight to everything. That shallowness, I'm sorry, still exists. Okay? Please sit down with your child and have a very serious conversation. Okay? To my young guys who want to get married, you have to include your parents. Unless they're being unreasonable about it, he has to be from this village and she has to be from that language and blah, 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 and that is unreasonable, include them. There's nothing worse than you bringing in a spouse into your family and to a family that didn't want them to begin with. That's so hard, man. So hard. So, there's a lot more to it, and please follow up afterwards, ask me, absolutely. But there are things Islam has said on how to meet, on how to get together, on what to ask, how to converse, how many times can they meet afterwards, can they go out for, let's say, a coffee, even though they're not madam, and speak on the phone. All of that is yes, they can. Let's not make it difficult. Yes, they can. Now, it can't be that for 8 months, every night for 3 hours, you're talking, and when your mom asks, nay, we're still thinking about it. Chal, get out of here. It's been 8 months, what's wrong with you? You're hee all night, and you're still confused? That's enough now. Yes or no? It's not some game you're playing, right? Right? No. Right? I honestly, after 4 or 5 visits, and please accept my, after 4 or 5 visits, you should know this guy is worth it or not worth it. This girl is worth it or not worth it. Visits, that means text, that means phone calls, that means a coffee run, that means a walk in the mall, all supervised, mind you. All supervised. They'll be on one side of Dunkin' Donuts having a coffee, you'll be on the other side. In the same Dunkin' Donuts, but you don't hear a word they're saying. Supervised isolation, it's called. Completely jaized in Islam. You're going for a walk up and down the mall, let them walk a little bit ahead. You go 10 feet back, but make sure they're in view. Nothing wrong with that. By then, you should know, I'm sorry. I need more time, I need more time. Fine, give them a couple more visits. And after that, it's not a kale, it's not some game, right? You've met the family, you talk to the boy, he seems to be good, bismillah, on paper it looks good. Now comes the effort. Now comes the mawaddatun for rahmah. The idea that with mercy and mawaddah, now Allah says you can build your marriage. My last point, I'm sorry, it's one of my passion projects, sorry. My last point is that, please, my young guys getting married, you have to have a little bit more himmat. Please. My father had a beautiful statement to me. When I was at the age where I went to say, Dad, I want to get married. He said to me, and I love his statement, I don't know where he got it from, but maybe it was his. He says, look, don't marry the one you love the one you marry. Unless there are, of course, circumstances where, God forbid, there's physical abuse or abuse, blah, 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 and unfortunately it's rampant right now, we have to fight for our marriages. So a little bit of, the toothpaste is not screwed on properly, the socks are in the corner, the dishes are not done, talaq. Oh, wait a second, hold on. Hold on 1 second. Well, tell them to screw it on properly, don't worry. Right? Tell them to put the socks away. But this bardash and himmat and sort of this courage now and fight for the marriage now, I find, is a little bit of the product of the society. It's okay, you're young, you'll find another girl. It's okay, she's 25, it's okay. She has her whole life ahead of her. They don't realize a girl who's divorced in our communities, unfortunately, has a huge stigma over her. We're now, we're still not there where we look at it in a just and a fair way, right? So please tread carefully, right? Especially as the boys thought, that's someone's girl, that's someone's daughter. Please have izzat and respect and blah, 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 and this and that. Sorry, that's my spiel. I apologize. I'm sorry. Yeah.
No, it's very good.
Follow-ups? Anybody?
Okay. So
No?
there,
Wow.
okay,
Okay.
next. The situation is that the eldest son, the father has said to the eldest son that when I pass, you would have to do all my qada prayers.
Yes.
Please don't give that namaz for others to do.
Okay.
Is this allowed or is it fair?
It is the responsibility of the eldest son, not the eldest daughter, the eldest son, okay, to ensure that the qaza namazes and qaza roses are done and performed on behalf of the father. Now, how he chooses to perform those is up to him. So, it's if you want to, it's nice. It's my father's dying wish, and that's up to you. Shara'an, though, he can get that done, as you know, by paying someone to do it. Okay, especially if the father has like years and years of qadha namazes and roses. It's a lot to ask, and really, it's the idea that I want my own son, and we think that if my son performs it, it might mean more in barzakh, and that's not the case at all. So it's a lot to ask, and if you want to sort of fulfill that wish of your father's, that's up to you, no problem. Islamically, you don't need to do that. You can have it done, and in an age where it's super busy and blah, 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 I think that might be something that's more convenient. But if you can struggle a little bit, that'd be good. Maybe compromise, right? No problem. But you're not held down. It's not wajib on you now. I have to do it because my father said so. No, not the case at all.
A couple questions about mothers that are stay-at-home or
Yes.
wives. What does Islam say about how husbands should show their appreciation to their wives?
Oh.
And also, how do we, or the question says, is that how can, he be told that, it's exhausting and that the husband thinks it's not his job to help in the house since he's working?
Is that still going on?
I guess it's in the Slido.
Is it? Are there still like new age fathers that believe that it's not their job to help around the house? Oh. Oh, is he here right now? Is that why you can't say anything? It's shocking to me. Maybe I'm a little bit naive. It's shocking to me that after all these new age discussions and all of these Muslims and non-Muslim preachers that talk about the idea that, it takes a village and blah, 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 that there are still some deadbeat fathers out there. It's shocking to me. Obviously, if you have the luxury, and it is a luxury, in this inflation, this economy, that you have one dedicated parent who is raising the child at home, then the other parent absolutely has a responsibility to make sure that his wife is looked after. Okay? Don't tell me, oh, what about the fact that I just worked at 9 to 5 and blah, 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 and this and that. And, the moment that we start keeping score is where there's a problem in a marriage. Okay? That we start comparing who is putting more effort into the family, then there's a deeper problem there. We should want to relieve our spouse of their pressure. That's what love is essentially. I see you're stressed, like you haven't even had time to put a comb through your hair all day. You haven't changed out of your pajamas. Let me take the baby, right? If I can, let's say, and you have a moment to yourself. That means that you just go, scrolling up and down reels, or you go grab, some bubble tea with your sisters, or I don't know, you just kind of take a nap, let's say, for example. So be it. Take a shower or whatever. That should be the bare minimum, guys. If that's still not happening, then I don't know what to do. But I think it's important that of course we realize that just because we work a 9 to 5 and we come home and we bring home the money does not mean that I don't have a responsibility at home, right? I say these things, I get in a lot of trouble by saying these things. If Islam places such an importance on these things that if your wife who is nursing her child, asks for payment for that nursing, it's wajib upon you to pay her to nurse her own child. On top of that, and she doesn't want the money. You don't want the money, do you? No. She wants the appreciation. She wants the fact that I just want some compassion. Maybe some adult conversation would be nice, right? Maybe just the acknowledgement that, they got upset. Maybe just the acknowledgement that, I'm only kidding. Maybe the acknowledgement that, I'm out of here. Maybe the acknowledgement that you know what, just words of appreciation, that's all. But let's not do the idea that, well, it's assumed. You're the mother. Who else will do it but you? Right? That guy's wife doesn't complain. Why are you always complaining? That stuff is just obviously unknown. I'm shocked it's still happening. So it's important that as men we understand that we have to do what's outside the home and also what's inside the home. Very little is asked as a wajib act from our wives for us. Very little. Okay? Very little. From the cooking and the cleaning, not wajib on her. Right? All of that is wajib upon us. You want a clean house? There's the broom and there's the mop. Bismillah.
Okay, thank you, Syed. I think we're approaching the 1 hour mark since we started. Inshallah.
How far is MCC from here?
20 minutes.
Oh, okay, we're good.
Okay. We'll do a few more questions, inshallah. I know
Yeah,
the
of course,
questions
please.
keep coming in, but
Sorry?
we're going to have to. The questions are coming in.
Okay, no problem. I'm here.
Quite a bit.
I'm here. Yeah, we got a good 20 minutes, please.
Okay.
I'm loving this. It's great. I'm having a great time here. Can I have more chai? More of this
Yeah.
this crackhead chai you guys call it? There's something in here that's not halal, I'm telling you right now. And don't tell me until I have my third cup, please. No, man, there's something in there. That's crazy, that's why I'm telling you. That's nuts, that chai. Sorry, Sister Salma, you're trying to be serious, and I'm not. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's fine. What if women are dressed appropriately, but men can't lower their gaze? How is that a woman's problem? We tend to be blamed, even if dressed fine.
It's not a woman's problem. So you being blamed for that is ignorance. It's illogical, and in the eyes of God, if you're dressed properly, and you should know what properly means for you, and a man still can't keep his eyes to himself, then that's between him and his God. You should be comfortable with the fact that I'm not causing this. I can't be any more covered than I am right now. And unfortunately, the way that a male brain works is that even in a Iranian chadr, they can find some sort of pleasure in a woman's body. I'm sorry, I don't mean to disrespect anybody in the room, but that's how men are, unfortunately. So at that moment, you have to free yourself of that zimmedari responsibility and say, bhai, that's you and your God, not me.
Thank you. What's the best way to improve memory? I listen to multiple majlis and lectures, but it's very difficult for me to remember and apply the lessons in life.
As a speaker, that's a hilarious question. You've heard the answers. I'll tell you what really helps me in my memory is the Quran. So not reading it, but memorizing it. It's incredible, something about it. Just you guys have seen me lecture. Maybe some of you have. I don't have an iPad up there. I don't have notes. I don't use my phone. Blah blah blah. And in the beginning, I would spend hours and hours trying to nail down the verses that I want to recite. Right. Hours and hours memorizing. And now as I'm getting a little bit older, it's becoming, it's cutting down in half. And because, it's a hadith, right? If you want to increase your hafiza, your memory, the Quran is ideal.
How much do you recommend reading?
So the hadith says 50 verses a day. I think that's a lot for us. I think if we start with 10, that would be great. With meaning, that'd be really, really good. Yeah, if we can make the Quran a part of our day, that'd be really good. I'm not asking you to sit there and have one juz and this and that, and there's my dealer. This is my dealer, right here, buddy. Lay it down there, champ. Thank you, sir. Aage chai. Khush raho, beta, khush raho.
What method works for you for memorizing the Quran?
So what helps me is the meaning.
The meaning.
The translations. Yeah. So I know this word means this, that word, that really, really helps me. Yeah. And then knowing a little bit of Arabic grammar, I know this is a kasra nazamma automatically, that helps, but when I know the meaning of it, of each word is really, really important.
So,
I'm sorry.
follow.
With that said, how important it is for us to learn Arabic?
It depends on what you mean by Arabic. Grammar, speaking, blah, blah, blah. I think,
Quranic Arabic.
yeah, I think there's mafahim Quran where you know a little bit of that. I think that's important to a certain degree. It makes reading the Quran has lizzat to it then. You're able to recognize in Arabic some of the verbs and the pronouns and the nouns. It really makes it nice. I don't think you need to know how to speak Arabic. In my 10 years of Qom, I never learned how to speak Arabic. I didn't feel the need to learn how to speak Arabic. I won't deliver lectures in Arabic. But Arabic grammar is very, very important. Mafahim is also important. Breaking down, for example, the words. And I think there are some courses online that are done very well. And so, I think it's nice. It also reduces the amount of hurdles between us and the Quran as well.
Yeah. How do we manage conflict and disagreements with elders without disrespecting their wisdom and input?
That's a good one. I think we were talking a little bit about this outside during the break. I think number one is we have to curb our expectations, number one. So trying to change a 65-year-old woman or 72-year-old man, especially if you're in your 20s or your 30s, it's not going to happen. Not going to happen. Also keep in mind where they're coming from and their background and the amount of knowledge they have. And then saying your piece, and then if they're open to it, they're open to it. If they're not, then then you walk away and say, okay, thank you very much. Qalu salama, the Quran says, right? At that moment, then you know that it's falling on deaf ears. Not disrespectfully, but maybe they're not ready for that. I had one individual, after I read Masayib, that Ali Akbar was the first member of the Bani Hashim to be given ijazat to go to war by Imam Hussein. It's a very well-known fact. He came to me afterwards. He was quite old, and he says to me that you read the Masayib wrong. It was actually Hazrat Abbas who went to the battlefield first, not Ali Akbar. I said, no. I said, that's not what I've read, uncle. And then he quoted to me a Noha. I said, no, I haven't heard the Noha. I read this book though, right? And then he said, no. He goes, forget the books, read the Nohas. The Nohas will tell you more. And And I tried to explain, I said, look, the Noha is a khayal of the poets. The book is the knowledge of the author. It wasn't going very far, the conversation. So I just said, Tika, next time I'll be careful. Uncle. Thank you very much. And I walked away. That's it. At that moment, we're not going to raise our voice and this and that, and God forbid. There are elders, and so I think it's case by case, sister. Where if they're engaging and they're welcome, and many of the elders are, alhamdulillah, then you give them more. If there's a brick wall, then thank you very much. Yeah. Ask for du'as and you leave.
So this goes back to the presentation. Is there a reason why the terminology qalb is used to explain our state of being? Is there
Terminology qalb is used?
Yes.
Yeah.
Is there a connection with the physical heart? And also, what is the connection with the nafs? That was the second question.
Yeah, great question. You really understand a little bit of the community and where they're at by the questions. So very impressed by your questions today, mashallah. I'll give you guys more. It's fantastic. There's absolutely a connection between the physical heart. That also fluctuates between beats, as you guys know. So the qalb also fluctuates. Then the internal dimension of us is that as human beings, sometimes we fluctuate to the point we don't recognize ourselves sometimes, right? We actually say, I'm sorry, bro, that wasn't me, or it wasn't like me, right? I'm not sure what happened to me, but I'm back to being normal, blah, 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 this and that. So literally we go into a state where even we don't recognize ourselves. So that's why it's called the qalb, is because we actually go through this phase. And Imam Ali says the human being travels either above the angels or below the animals sometimes, right? Where now you're able to be governed by your intellect, you're above the angels, you give in to every desire, you're below the animals. And this fluctuation is derived by the qalb. So yeah, that istilah, that terminology is used very carefully.
And with the nafs?
Yeah, the nafs is that animalistic desire inside of us that needs to be governed by the intellect. So the only thing I'll tell you between the qalb and the nafs is that when the qalb fluctuates in the wrong way, it ends up in the city of the nafs. And when it fluctuates this way, it ends up in the city of the ruh, the spirit. And these are the two, angelic, animalistic, the red and the blue on the diagram I gave you. And then that qalb kind of goes through this city, then that city, and fluctuates. That's all I'll say about the nafs.
Okay. How do you build self-esteem and confidence in your hijabi teen girl? And also, how do you get your son to look for inner beauty in a spouse and not at the outer?
Wow. So the self-esteem of a girl has to be done through a village. Okay? So if you're the parent of that girl, then it's your job to remind them, whenever you can, of how beautiful they are inside and out. Without, of course, and again, it goes back to balance, without putting them on a pedestal where they think that, they're a goddess. If you're a friend of a hijabi girl, if you're a fellow hijabi and a friend of hers, comment on the way she tied their hijab and the colors she used, the way she matched her purse with her hijab, and the tassels she used. Is that a new pin? Where'd you get it from? Blah, 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 this and that, all these things. So let her know that, alhamdulillah, the way you're doing things it's admirable. Okay? With boys, I think that you have to start at a very young age. You really do. You really do. You have to wait for them to not enter that, how do I say this the right way without offending anybody? But where they enter that chauvinistic male side of them, where all they see is the physical. Before they get to that stage, like my son Hassan is 8 years old, and from now we sort of plant inside of him a little bit of the importance of women and inner beauty and blah blah blah. So it has to be at a very young age. That's why the 7-7-7 hadith that you've heard 1,000 times is very, very important. That second set of 7, from 8 to 13 or 8 to 14 or so, is very, very important. That's the crux of the 3 sevens. That is where you give all the tarbiyat to that child. And then you hope afterwards that they use that tarbiyat. Yeah.
Thank you, Syed. I think that we still have a lot of questions for you. That means you have to come back, inshallah. And if you all agree, then please recite a salawat.
Oh, nice one.
On
There's
behalf,
close to 90 people who registered for this workshop.
Alhamdulillah.
That's incredible.
And we had
man.
more people show up,
That's
and that's
incredible.
the best that we've ever had.
on a
And
long-
alhamdulillah.
really, I mean, that says a
Jazakallah
lot
khair.
on a weekend in Safar for you to do that. I know there must be a gazillion madrasas right now in people's homes, and it's really impressive, mashallah. Allah give you more. It's very inspiring, very inspiring.
Well, there was a question on there. One of the, I don't know if it was a male or female. They're like, can we name our kids Shakir? Those that know will know.
Yeah. IYKYK, guys.
Okay.
Listen to his madras this year
Yeah.
at JCC.
Thank you very much, Syed. Really, it's been an honor to host
Thank you
you,
so
and
much.
I know today was a very busy day for
Not at
you.
all, not at all.
May
Thank
Allah
you
give
very
you
much.
more
Ilahi
tawfiqat
ameen,
and
ilahi.
bless you as well.
You as
Can
well,
we
thank
get
you.
some of your help before everyone leaves? A couple of requests. The last 2 rows of chairs need to go back to the ladies' hall upstairs. So if maybe some of the men can help with that. Also, yeah, so the chairs that are here, if you can fold them up, half of them go in the men's and half of them in the ladies and the tables, please. And please pick up any trash that's around you. Jazakallah khair. Yeah. Please don't leave without eating dinner right after Maghrib namaz. Inshallah.
Thank you, Bilal. Thank you so much. Allah bless you, man. Thank you so much for everything.